Hi, lovely people. I'm sorry that I'm not in this video. I'm having to film this with my phone. So let's talk about the age of exploration. This is age of exploration video 1. Let's talk about the historical setting for exploration. Europe wanted to trade specifically with the Middle East and India, but the world was divided into independent spheres, meaning that India and Asia was one sphere, the Middle East was one sphere, Europe was one sphere, and they're all pretty independent from each other. So they had very limited contact between those spheres. The Vikings had discovered the New World, but they hadn't really done anything with it. Okay? There are a lot of Renaissance ideas that influenced the age of exploration. Most educated men believed the world was round. The world was not flat. Nobody believed it was flat. Most educated men believed the world was round. And they had heard stories of other lands, especially from the Vikings, but not about the Western Hemisphere specifically. Okay, there were a lot of economic developments. They wanted to expand the trade routes specifically to India because Europeans loved Asian goods, specifically spices. There was also the development of banking that helped finance these travels. There are lots of new technology. There are caravels, which are types of ships. There is a lot of increased ships technology with sails and rudders and stuff like that. There are also armaments, that's another word for guns, and weapons and such. There's a lot of new technology like the astrolabe and the compass. We will be learning about those. And there's a lot of practical knowledge about wind and currents. And if you want to sail east, you got to turn into these currents. If you want to sail west, you got to turn into these currents. There were also lots of advances with cartography and projection. Hipparchus and Ptolemy were some Latin guys who did a lot of different projections that people had used in the Middle Ages. But Mercator really came out with a fantastic map to help sailors sail more efficiently. Okay? Go to the next one. Give me 1 second. Okay, the motives for expansion. There's a search for land and resources. The land and resources included things like oceanic resources like fish, etc. There were things like wheat and sugar that people were really excited about. And there were also a lot of trade contacts. They wanted to trade with Asia, they wanted to trade with Africa, and maybe some of these other lands that they had heard about. There's also a motive for missionary activity. A lot of Christians wanted to go into these places, these savage places, and mission to them, tell them about the Word of God. And there was also glory, both personal, like individual glory, and national glory for their country. Okay? The first people to go about doing this are the Portuguese, but because they're mainly dependent on the seas and they have ocean access. Just due to their geographic location. The first person to go out is going to be this guy named Henry the Navigator, and he's looking for a route to Asia. He's originally going to explore Africa, trying to get to Asia. He also opens a navigational school, and his motivations are money, you see the $, and Christianity, you see that cross right there. Also, the Portuguese are going to heavily explore Africa just in general, specifically the West African coast, and they're going to do so for trade. Again, I apologize that I'm filming my video like this, but I want to make sure that you guys get it. The Portuguese are going to start the slave trade. It starts in 1443, and it is sanctioned by the Pope. Local slave trades in the area had already existed. So on the west coast of Africa, Africans were already participating in the slave trade with other Africans. Okay, then the Portuguese come in, and they start trading Africans, or the Portuguese start trading Africans themselves. And they're doing this specifically to work on sugarcane plantations. The sugarcane plantations that the Portuguese were building, they wanted them to be very profitable, and Africans already had knowledge of them, so they enslaved them. Another Portuguese guy is going to be Bartolomeu Dias. He's going to explore the coast of Africa, and he's going to round the Cape of Good Hope in 1488, and then he's going to return to Portugal. We have this guy named Vasco da Gama, who's going to sail in 1498, and he's going to be looking for an Indian sea route. Okay, they're trying to get to India specifically to look for spices, etc., etc. Last slide, y'all. The Portuguese Empire in the east is going to be the largest European empire ever in Asia, and they're also going to do a lot of Arabian Peninsula trade. That's in the Middle East. And they are going to love trading with India because, again, Europeans love Indian goods. The Portuguese Empire is going to collapse due to their control being weakened because they're taken over by Spain in 1580. Japan, who was kind of cooperating with the Portuguese, kind of threw everybody out and just started a policy of isolationism. That means that they want nobody except other Japanese people to associate with them. Other European countries are going to seize control of Portuguese interest, and the Portuguese Empire is pretty much going to collapse. If you have any questions, email me and let me know. Thanks.